In this video, we're going to look at all the parts needed to create a basic web page. Before we start creating our web page, we need to define a few things. The first thing we need to define is an element. HTML code is made up of characters that live inside angled brackets. These are called HTML elements. Elements are usually made up of two tags, an opening tag and a closing tag. Each HTML element tells the browser something about the information that sits between its opening and closing tags. When we look at how an element is constructed, we have an opening tag that consists of a left angle bracket, a character, and a right angle bracket. We have a closing tag which has the same format but has a / added just before the character. The character indicates the tag's purpose. In this example, the character is a P, which stands for paragraph, so this is a paragraph element. Paragraph elements contain text, which is the content. In later lessons, we will look at different types of elements, but for now, let's just understand what an element is. Not all elements have an opening and closing tag. Some elements are self-terminating, meaning they do not have a closing tag, and they do not contain any content. They just have attributes. Attributes provide additional information about the content of an element. They appear in the opening tag of the element and are made up of two parts, a name and a value, separated by an equal sign. An element can have more than one attribute. If an element has more than one attribute, it is separated by a space. A web page is made up of different parts. The first line is a DOCTYPE Declaration. Each web page should begin with a DOCTYPE Declaration. It tells the browser which version of HTML the page is using. The HTML element is referred to as a root element of the page, since it holds all the rest of the code for the page and identifies the page as HTML code. The head element is inside the HTML element. It contains information about the page that is not seen by the user, but useful to the browser. The meta element is located within the head area. Meta elements are self-terminating elements. They have a number of purposes, such as telling search engines about your page, who created it, and whether or not it is time sensitive. There are other things meta elements can do, but this is just an example. The title element is located within the head element. The title element contains the title of the web page. This title shows up in the browser tab or at the top of the page. The body element is located after the head element. Every element inside the body element is used to create the web page that is viewed by the user. Now, since we understand the parts of a web page, let's write our first web page and see how the parts fit together. First, I will create a folder on my desktop named Module 2. Then, I will open up my brackets editor and create a file named index.html. That file will be placed inside my Module 2 folder. The first thing I will write is a DOCTYPE declaration for HTML5. Next, I will write the HTML element, which will contain all the other elements. The HTML element has a lang attribute set to EN, meaning I am setting the language to English. I am telling the browser that the language for this web page will be in English. Within the HTML element, I will add the head element. Within the head element, I will add one meta element which sets the character set to UTF-8, which is used for the web. There are other meta elements you can add, but for this example, we will use just one. After the meta elements, I will add the title element. The title element content will appear in the browser tab or at the top of the browser window. Where it appears all depends on the browser. After the head element, I create the body element, which will contain all the elements used to create this web page. For this example, I will enter a paragraph element. When I display the web page in my browser, you can see that it is showing the content of the paragraph, but nothing else. Also, notice the title appears in the tab. That is all there is to create a basic web page. Of course, you can do a lot more than display one line of text, and we'll be exploring that in future lessons.